Hey students, this is lesson 634, absolute value. Some of you have some work with absolute value before. The absolute value of a number is its distance from zero on a number line. And when we say distance, a distance has to be a positive number. So the absolute value of 4 is 4 because from 0 to 4 is a distance of 4 units. And the absolute value of negative 4 is 4 because the distance from negative 4 to 0 is 4 units. So we get this. The absolute value of 4 is 4, and so is the absolute value of negative 4 is 4. So that leads us to this equation. If we say the absolute value of what number is equal 4, we can see from this example that there's two answers that we can put in that absolute value symbol for x that turn out to be 4. Both x is equal to negative 4 and x is equal to 4. So that absolute value equation has two solutions. And you should know that when we make parentheses like this that are straight up and down, that means the absolute value. So we're going to learn how to use absolute value to solve problems. Here's our first problem. What are the solutions of the absolute value of x plus 2 equals 9? Graph and check your solution. Some of the properties that we learned before, like the properties of equality, we can use here. So notice, to get rid of this plus 2, we're just going to subtract 2 from both sides. Then we get the absolute value of x equals 7. And right away we think, well, there's two numbers that we can take the absolute value of, and they equal 7. And they are 7 and negative 7. And if we want to graph those on a number line, we'd have a dot at negative 7 and a dot at 7. And remember, absolute value is the distance from 0. Both those distances are 7. All right, so let's try one here. Go ahead and pause, see if you can get this one yourself. I would suggest starting by adding 5 to both sides. If we add 5 to both sides, then we get just the absolute value all by itself. And that's what we need to solve this, to figure it out. Negative 2 plus 5 is 3. So now we're thinking, what numbers can we put in here for n, do the absolute value of them, and get positive 3? And there are two of them. N can be negative 3, because the absolute value of negative 3 is 3. And n can be positive 3, because the absolute value of positive 3 is 3. And to graph those, we can just quick make a number line like this, and we'll put 0 here, and we'll let each of these lines represent 1 unit. And so we need a dot at positive 3 and a dot at negative 3 to graph the solutions. And once again, the distance from negative 3 to 0, that distance is 3. And the distance from 2 to 0 is also 3. So, here's a key concept. To solve an equation in the form absolute value of a is equal to b, where a represents a variable expression and b is greater than 0, solve a equals b and a equals opposite of b. And we saw that there's always two solutions. One that is that distance away in a positive direction, and one that is that distance away in a negative direction. So here's an example. Starting from 100 feet away, your friend skates toward you and then passes you. She skates at a constant speed of 20 feet per second. Her distance, d from you, in feet after t seconds is given by d equals the absolute value of 100 minus 20t. And the reason we have the absolute value there is because her distance away could be, well, she's coming towards you, or, well, she's going away from you. So it could be actually turn out to be a positive number or negative number, but since it's the distance, we want to do the absolute value to make sure it's a positive number. So it says, at what times is she 40 feet from you? And now notice how they solved this. They said, well, the thing inside the absolute value, the 100 minus 20t, could be positive 40, that distance away, or it could be negative 40. So it could be on the positive side of 0 or on the negative side of 0, 40 units away. Now, so we're just going to solve both these equations. In both of them, we're going to subtract 100 from each side. When we do that, we end up with negative 20t equals negative 60. And then we're going to divide both sides by negative 20 to get 3. Over here, we're going to subtract 100 again from both sides. And we end up with negative 20t equals negative 140. Divide both sides by negative 20. Negative 140 divided by negative 20 is 7. So the solutions are 3 seconds and 7 seconds. And think about that. It's 3 seconds as she's coming towards you. She'll be 40 feet away. And it's 7 seconds when she goes past you. So this is before, and this is beyond. Okay, so let's do one of those together. If you want to try it on your own and see if you can set it up, go ahead and just pause right now. I'm going to rewrite it up here so I have enough room. All right, so once we have the absolute value isolated right here, that means that this expression inside there can either be positive 8 units from 0, which gives us this equation, or it can be negative 8 units away from 0. Or at negative 8, and it's still 8 units from 0. So we get 2 equations like this, and then to solve them, we're going to add 1 to both sides here. And we get 3x equals 9. Then we'll divide by 3, and we get x equals 3. Or over here, we'll add 1 to both sides, and when we do that, we get 3x equals negative 7, and then we're going to divide both sides by 3, and we get x equals negative 2 1/3, or 2.3 repeating, however you want to look at it. So there's 2 solutions, and you might want to check those solutions in the original equation. So if x is 3, if I put 3 in there, 3 times 3 is 9, minus 1 is 8, and the absolute value of 8 is equal to 8. If I put 2 1/3 in there, or negative 7/3 in there, 3 times negative 7/3, that's equal to 1. That's equal to negative 7 minus 1, which is negative 8. And when I do the absolute value of negative 8, I get positive 8. So that one works. All right. Here's another example for you to check out. So this one, what we have to do is get this absolute value part right here isolated. To do that, you'll notice that they first subtracted 12 from each side. When they did that, let me make this bigger so we can see it a little better. Okay, so we subtract 12 from both sides, and that gives us this equation without the plus 12 in it, equals negative 2. Then divide both sides by 3, and when you divide this side by 3, that cancels that 3 out there, and when you divide this side by 3, you get negative 2/3. And so now it's not quite done yet, but here's the deal. Since this is a negative 2/3 right here, whenever you do the absolute value of something, so the story here is this: if you have the absolute value of some number and you say it's negative, there is no solution, because the absolute value of a number, the absolute value function makes every number positive or 0. No, it's never going to be negative, no matter what number you put in here. So if you get absolute value of something equals a negative number, then there's no solution. So let's check this problem out here. To solve this one, we are going to add 5 to both sides first. Remember, the idea here is we want to isolate this part of the equation, that absolute value, to see what we have at that point. So let's add 5 to both sides. When we do that, we get that, and negative 5 plus 5 is 0. Negative 7 plus 5 is negative 2. At that point, you're trying to take something that's going to be positive and make it equal a negative. So you can just say there's no solution. All right, I'll just do a couple more here with you. And remember that there's usually two solutions to problems like these. Let's start with this one. It says 6m equals 42. Now remember this absolute value, that tells you that there's a number to the left of 0 that is 42 units from 0, and there's a number to the right of 0 that's 42 units from 0. So we're going to write that 6m equals 42, or 6m equals negative 42. And in this one, 42 divided by 6 is 7. And in this one, negative 42 divided by 6 is negative 7. All right? I'll just do one more here. Let's do number 5 here. So the absolute value of 7 plus p is equal to 7. That means there's a place to the left of 0 where we have 7 plus p is equal to negative 7, or 7 plus p can equal 7. And if I subtract 7 from both sides, I get p is equal to negative 14. And let's just check that. If I take 7 plus negative 14, that's equal to negative 7. And when I do the absolute value of that, I get positive 7. So that one's good. Over here, I'm going to subtract 7 from both sides, and then I get p equals 0. So checking that, if I put 0 in there, 7 plus 0 is 7. The absolute value of 7 is 7. All right, I think we'll work on the rest of these in class. I'll see you tomorrow.